Okay, it's recording. Almost perfect time as well. 10:02. That's a nice round number. So should we go for about 50 minutes or 45, something like that?
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
yeah. Cool. Is this on speaker or is it just? Oh, as we're recording. Hello, everyone. What episode is this, James?
Episode
17.
17, I'm guessing.
God, this is so loud. I think it's on. I think it's on speaker. Let me just, for everyone else, give me 2 seconds. Yeah, it was on speaker, and we tried that before. Remember, when I was in Jalapa in Mexico, and the sound quality wasn't great when it's set to speaker. So it should be better now. Yeah, what's the topic of? We were going to extend Jonestown, weren't we? Actually, but we haven't really done enough research to continue on that thread. So I guess that will have to be paused for a while, and we can continue with like something more philosophical. Is that the game plan?
Yeah, indeed. Altruism is going to require more time than 45 to an hour, I think.
I feel like we're never going to get around to that, but realistically, everything boils down to that central debate. It's essentially like the existence of all life. You know, where does it come from? It's essentially the same kind of thing. You could argue that this is even the root of that. But of course, there's no way to actually conclude or answer these opinions. So,
the core of all motive is either altruistic or self-interest driven. So
no, because nothing is altruistic. Altruism doesn't exist because it's the idea that you can be selfless, but no one would do anything unless there's a benefit for them. Your body wouldn't even act. A body does nothing against itself. It's a computer system, in essence. The brain controls the body. It's a robot, and it would never do something for which there is no benefit. And that doesn't even mean to say, like, if you kill yourself, you're killing yourself because you want to kill yourself. That's why you kill yourself. You're wanting to do that. If you have, 2 kids hanging off the edge of a cliff, and there's supposedly exactly 5 seconds before they both fall, they look exactly the same. You can break down all the different variables so they're identical, but you'll still choose one of the children over the other, and nothing is random. You choose it, even if it's like a subconscious in your mind, it's still enacted from a desire to do. There's no such thing as altruism. It doesn't exist.
So
it's impossible.
Should we do the altruism one today?
Let's do it because no one can respond to that argument. I want to hear because everything that you okay. So, let's see it then. Let's hear it.
So when you talk about altruism on a biological level, I think that's different to, altruism on a psychological, even spiritual.
No, psychology is biology, and biology is spiritual. It's all one entity. We can't subdivide because that doesn't make sense anyway, because the psychological is the biological objectively, and spirituality, I mean, if it is that which governs the biological, then the argument still stands. It doesn't matter what the driving force is. The reality is that whatever drives is what creates the act, and the act is a derivative of that factor. Therefore, it's a self-interested act. It's an interested act at the very least, if you want to go spiritual. And the spiritual has a self because there's a governance to all. Nothing can be done to the detriment of that which is undertaking said task, i.e. the doer. You would never do something that would not bring a benefit.
But there are a million examples of that not being true. So
okay,
people partake in what you'd call self-harming behaviors all the time, things that aren't good for them physically, mentally. Based on that alone, you could say that even like physically speaking, we're not necessarily. So you have things like autoimmune disease where the body fights itself and harms itself in like intrinsically. So,
but that's not the governance. That's not the governing body, is it?
But if we're talking about
So
the governing body, we're talking about individuals. So, for instance, you have altruistic individuals and altruistic acts, and you have
give me an
self-interested
example.
individuals and
Give
self-interested
me an
acts.
example of an altruistic act.
So, doing something that you don't particularly want to do, something you just don't want to do, something you don't want to do, something you don't enjoy.
But you would never do something that you don't
anyway.
want to do.
Oh,
no, because there's a greater benefit.
I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to work.
But you do want to go to work.
No,
because
I
you're going to.
do not.
You absolutely do want to go to work because it brings you something else in your life, which is why you go to work. You may not like work, but you're going to work because you get paid, and with that money, you do things that you like. So it's a balance. You know, there's an equilibrium to everything. You've sponsored, you're doing something for a greater good. So again, it's a self-interested act. You wouldn't do it otherwise. If work brought you nothing, if you had to go to work and you were paid zero, and it was something that you really hated, you would never go there. You would never go there.
By the way, because I'm talking about altruism in terms of, so, you know, it could be. I mean, as I said, you know, you get benefits from doing things, absolutely.
Yes, which is
just that. It's a benefit, and of course, it will be in your interest to do it. But altruism is, you know, doing things for others. I mean, just simply going about living life isn't something that's.
But you haven't given me an example yet. I want to hear an example because we've had this debate before, and I definitely won. Give me an example of something that's altruistic.
I mean, people that aren't suicidal will, you know, give their lives, you know, for other people.
But they're giving their life for someone else. I still want the example, but if you give your life for someone else, you're giving your life because you want to give your life. Therefore, it's self-interested. There's no such thing as altruism.
No, I would say absolutely that people do things like people would, you know, absolutely fear dying, but they will make a decision that will benefit somebody else more than it will benefit them. And then that would be altruism.
No, because that's a third-party judgment. So if someone sacrifices their life for another, they're sacrificing that life because they want to do it. And your third-party judgment is saying, based on your belief, that that was a bad decision. But people make what other people believe are bad decisions every day, whether it's investment with their life. It's irrelevant from the context of the example.
No, not third party. I'm talking about from the view of the person who's giving their life.
But then they wouldn't do it.
At that moment, they do not want to die.
If they did not
made a choice, they're sacrificing their life ahead of, say, I don't know.
But you just contradicted yourself. You just contradicted yourself because every word you utilized in that sentence was they have decided to sacrifice.
They made a decision.
They have. So it's a self-interested act because it came from them. It wasn't selfless. They wanted to do it. It was a desire on their part.
But they made a decision against their self-interest. It's against.
Why? No. This is the biggest problem.
To stay alive. They want to live.
Well, if they wanted to stay alive and they wanted to live, they wouldn't risk their own life. They wouldn't take their own life, would they? So, for example, you're making a subjective opinion on the value of life. There are people that base jump, right? There are people that go in those squirrel wingsuits and jump off mountains, and there's a sizable chance that they will not live. But they do it because they want to do it and they enjoy it. And many other people look at these people and think, well, they're crazy, they're mad. You can take that to the next level. Take war. Someone, I don't know, bayonet charging another trench with almost a zero chance of survival. It doesn't matter what another person thinks. For that individual, it was their desire to do that, their self-interest to do it. Our judgments on what is, correct or not is irrelevant from the context of the discussion. The context of the discussion is the driving factor behind every act, because altruism supposes that an individual can undertake something which has absolutely zero benefit whatsoever to them, and that's impossible because otherwise the act would never have been undertaken in the first place. And you haven't still to give me an example.
Right. So I'm going to give you the definition of altruism.
No, but definition doesn't make any sense. Definition is irrelevant. Who creates definitions?
So when you
The legal system is riddled with definitions that aren't morally correct. As we've just debated earlier, a man will be killed because the law says it's not insane to shoot your 3 sons in the head. Clearly, he's insane. The law is irrelevant. The law protects corrupt people, and law is definition. Words are defined by people in authority. It doesn't mean that that's how the word should be defined. It's just somebody has decided that it should be defined that way. So we can't take words. I didn't create these words, and you didn't create these words. Someone created these words, and it's irrelevant from my life.
So I could give, a different meaning to self-interest, and you could give a different meaning to altruism. And then therefore that could take away, because so I think if we're going to debate something, we should at least start from like an official basis. So we can look at self-interest and the definition of that, and the definition of altruism, and say, okay, do these things exist? I understand that we can take things outside of the box and say, okay, on a spiritual or physical level, even, a thing self-interested. I think even on that level, I could argue that there are things that just are, and maybe there's no. So, for instance, we're designed to die. We are given a finite amount of time. We absolutely do not. So, you could argue that, well, that's not in. It's not in the interest of the body to not be here. Although that could be called a third-party judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
But then everything that's been perceived is a third-party judgment, because it's been perceived.
No, I don't think it is a third-party judgment at all, because I think if everyone was actually honest with themselves, sadly most people are not, they would know that everything that they do it for themselves. And that doesn't necessarily mean the act is a negative, and that's where people get confused with like selfish and selfless. It's not selfish for me to give a homeless person some food, right? But it is self-interested. I'm giving the homeless person food because I want to give them food. They are benefiting, so it's not a negative. Society, and again, I'm going to use that example, primary school teacher, serial killer, they kill and teach because they both want to, but society determines that one is good and one is bad, but it's still irrelevant from the debate, which is that self-interest is an absolute. And I think if you looked at everything that you do in your life, you should know that everything that you've undertaken has been beneficial to you. Otherwise, you never would have undertaken it. And that's the crux of the issue. People don't want to admit that what they do isn't altruistic because, well, I mean, people jab themselves with poison all the time and are virtue signalers and pretend that they do all kinds of bad things or good things knowing that they're really bad. But you should be able to, James, decipher 100% of all your behaviors and know that you've undertaken them because there's been a benefit for you to do so, as I have.
I would say most of them, but not all of them. It's like,
you'd have to give me a shareable example.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that, every, there's not a person that exists that is purely altruistic, but I mean, altruism is a word, and we're talking about self-interest and altruism. If we're saying, can you argue that everything maybe benefits you? I think even that I couldn't argue, because not everything does benefit people. And insanity is a great, it's amazing that you actually mentioned insanity, because people don't choose to be insane. If you've got like, something wrong with your brain physiologically that makes you do things that are absolutely destructive to you and people around you.
No, but the destruction is a self-interest. If someone wants to destroy themselves,
there's no want. It's innate, isn't it? It's a pre-programmed quirk.
Well, we're getting to a fork where we're now either going into what defines insanity, because we could all be insane in theory. I mean, what objectively is insanity? Where do you draw the line? And that goes to my example of the primary school teacher who teaches and the serial killer who kills. Society has decided that the serial killer is bad and the primary school teacher is good, but actually criminality is completely fluid. And if you go from one part of the world to the next, we have different sentences. We have certain things that are crimes in one place. Drugs is one perfect example. You can smoke marijuana in one state in the United States, and it's totally fine. You can walk across the border and you'll be arrested and potentially imprisoned for the exact same thing. So it's super fluid that we won't be able to really enter into that realm, because of that enters the kind of liberalist underbelly of society, which is indefinite bureaucracy and debate, so that there is actually no practicality to existence, which is what the West is very much coming to. Kind of the classic armchair anthropologist scenario where people argue for the sake of arguing without actually applying things for practical purposes, which is where I hope this debate would go, because I think the altruism line doesn't have to go into philosophy. I don't think it is subjective. I think it is objective.
Literally a philosophy. I mean,
I don't think it is a philosophy. I see it more as like a machine mechanism. A machine prints something. There is a product. We are a machine, and everything that is undertaken by ourselves, the biological being that we are, is a machine approach. Everything is calculated like a computer. The brain is a computer, and frankly, it could well be. That's another aspect of the debate, the origin of existence. We essentially could just be advanced AI. And actually, we now have robotics at such a standard in the public eye that we can attach living flesh, for lack of a better term, organs to a robotic structure. And I guess the next stage of that would be replacing things that they already have now, for example, like titanium hip replacements, with something that's actually a real hip joint that you can grow in a lab. You can already grow children in petri dishes. You can already clone animals. You can grow organs, period. In fact, I believe you can buy petri dish grown beef at London restaurants for a couple of £1,000. So you can actually, the science has already reached that point. So that's the other debate. But I do think that it's not a subjective philosophical debate. I see it as a systematic kind of deciphering of us as a robotic being.
So back to altruism, like we're talking about, so we're using a word that has a clear definition and we're debating if that exists. But if you're taking away meaning from the word, from a, third person perspective, because you're saying that, okay, John, am saying that this word altruism, by the way it's defined, and the system that creates this word is wholly corrupt, but we're all using words.
Why is it defined?
But because it's something that's defined officially. It's officially defined. All of these words that we're using are officially defined.
No, they're not. They're not.
Every single word that's been spoken in this conversation has an official definition.
No, it doesn't. Every dictionary has its own individual take on how they define words. Therefore, definition is an oxymoron, because it denotes the idea that something is absolutely defined, and nothing is absolutely defined. If you go from Collins Dictionary, no, nothing is defined, and that's the problem. If you go from Oxford Dictionary to Collins, you'll get completely different.
Then there's no such thing as self-interest. Then if there's no such thing as altruism, then there's no such thing as self-interest.
Well,
because you can argue that anything that that one is defining, could be perceived as.
You're absolutely right. There's no such thing as anything then, because there's nothing in the world that is absolute.
The debate. You've just tried to degrade the debate.
Well, yeah, we've just concluded, because that's the problem. We know that everything in the world is subjective. Nothing is absolute, right? Nothing is absolute. There's nothing in the world that can be agreed upon by every being or living organism or particle in the world, including the word particle itself. The spelling of particle, the size of it, everything is debatable. Therefore, this debate should just be encapsulating our understanding of logic and our desire to define that logic, our logic, as people who believe we have, that's what it comes down to.
So,
because there is no absolute.
Yeah.
But we can, as logical beings.
If you say there are no absolutes, then that's literally going in the liberal realm of,
No.
But whatever.
No.
I'm a fucking Susan.
No, because I didn't say I agreed with it. I didn't say I agree with it. I mean, it exists because it can exist, and it does exist, right? You have these people that apparently have a penis when they're a woman, but they're not actually a woman, in my belief. Someone else might believe it, and do I respect their belief to believe that? No, I don't, because it's like I don't respect people that want to go and kill someone or steal from them. But there's lots of criminals that will respect that. It's like a ritual in that society. Pedophiles raping kids all the time. I don't respect that, but pedophiles respect it. So this is the
The thing
system, right?
is,
We're
is
arguing on our logic because there is no absolute, and it's not liberalists because a liberal is someone that will keep sponsoring what we've just answered in 15 seconds to
I
create
would
their
tell.
own belief system.
Okay, right. So I will say that there absolutely are absolutes, and I'm going to use those exact examples that you gave. So these people that will herald people that commit violent crimes and heinous acts and do things that are just outright immoral. There's a reason why 99.9% of the time, in fact, 99.9999% of the time, these things are said and spoken about behind closed doors. People do not go on national television and and speak about such things like 9.999% of the times. Yep, you can absolutely find an odd case, because even the person that's perpetrating such heinous acts know that these acts are heinous. They're ashamed, they hide it. This is why serial killers operate at night. They don't just they don't want to get caught, obviously, because that's absolutely a self-interested act, absolutely. And it's just in its whole essence, you're taking away from somebody, or you're taking life, which isn't for some kind of rush or gain to oneself, like someone taking drugs, or stealing for financial gain, etc. So yeah.
But you're using the 99% as a measurement.
0.999.
Yeah, but you're using that
There
as a
may be one
measurement as
exception
if
in a
that,
million.
but as if that discerns truth. If I take 99.9% of people from a village in the middle of the Amazon that have never left that village in their entire life, and I compare them with someone that's traveled to 200 countries and is a fucking astrophysicist and I don't know, just has a shit ton of accolades, but genuine accolades and genuine abilities, who do you think has more value? Because the 99% of people have experienced the exact same thing. If I put them in, let's say, 20 meters squared, they're all essentially replicas. Okay, aesthetically they're different. And actually, I just we spoke about this in a voice message, not to go on a tangent, but a quick change. That's what society is. People think that they can wear different clothes and have different hair and I don't know, have different body piercings and different tattoos and have different jobs and all this kind of stuff, but it's all aesthetic. When you break it down, they all have the exact same life for the most part, when you really break it down. And of course, there's different variants of that. There's different extremes of that. And I'm giving an extreme example for the purpose of this debate. If we went to the Amazon and we took a village and we made it so that no one left that village since the day that they were born, there's 100 people there. Just because it's 100 people doesn't mean to say that they have more value than one person. And they don't, because they're all the same. They've experienced the exact same behavior versus someone that's experienced a lot. So using 99.9% as an argument also contradicts our own understanding of how society operates, because most people have been fucking COVID jabbed and they're idiots. Not all of them are idiots. Some of them did a mistake, but people don't act logically. People act with the herd mentality, and it's the pyramid scheme in essence, right? So you gave an example about pedophilia and pedophilia being regarded as publicly bad, and that they don't reveal it because it's not in their interest, because they think there's going to be reprimands for that. That's wrong. That's
Not
wrong.
even
They reveal
necessarily
it all
just
the time.
pedophilia, but just in
People that
general.
aren't in, no, people that aren't in the club, don't reveal, because it's an exclusive thing and they're not ashamed of it. They love it. They enjoy it. These people rape kids all the time. The people that you see in the news are just nobodies. They're just the odd pervert or rapist on the street. Of course, those people get thrown in jail, but the real people don't, of course. And those are the people with governance. Just because they're the 0.01% doesn't mean to say that they have less power than the 99%. They have more power. The people at the top of the pyramid, that's the smallest point on the pyramid, the top. And those are the people with the most authority. The rest of us have nothing.
Yep, absolutely. That's the way it works. The 1% of 99% of the power. But in regards to in my point, I'm just saying that even the people that are committing such acts, even the ones in power, they don't come out and do it on TV because they know how it will be perceived. Because a lot of people have a natural sense of morality that's absolute. I mean, if we're
No,
going to
but
say
that
that, you know, certain things aren't, it's all right to just go and cut off a baby's head, but that's just our opinion that that's, a bad thing to do. But, in some other universe, that's actually a good thing. It's like, fuck that. That's bollocks. You know what I mean? We need to just have, we do have absolute morals. We do have absolute morals, and they're just hardwired into us.
Well, you just contradicted yourself. We don't have absolute morals because there are people that chop off babies' heads, and so long as there's one person that does it, it's not an absolute. Now, this goes back to what we were saying earlier, where we kind of concluded on the fact that nothing is an absolute, but that we want to sponsor our ideals.
I mean,
hence why there are people that think they're men and they're women, and there's people that are women and think they're men. They're not,
right?
but they're thinking that. I don't agree with it, but they can think that, and they will think that, irrespective of what I believe, right?
Yeah. So what I would say is that there's more than just like two groups. Like there's not just like, I don't know, people that are 100% the people that are angels and people that are devils. Things are on a spectrum, and we know that you have exceptions to rules. So the rule is you don't cut off a baby's head. The exception is you get people that suffer from psychosis, schizophrenia. Like all of these things absolutely exist.
But do they? No, do
I mean,
they? Because it's a medical term, right?
but
And
there, but there
actually,
are
that's a
proven
contradiction as
mechanisms.
well.
But there's proven
But do you not?
mechanisms.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you just made a contradiction there. So you've said, okay, so not everyone is an angel and not everyone is Satan, right? But that's
Yeah.
why we have a scale. And after passing a certain scale, we can push someone closer to one end than the other. It's a bit like so-called democracy, where you go and vote for Labour or Conservative. If you're beyond the middle line in one direction, you're more Labour. And if you're on the other direction, you're deemed more Conservative. Same with criminality. If you go too far, you're closer to the devil. If you do really, really good things, you're closer to God, supposedly, right? But that's the same example you just gave. We have to generalize, because otherwise we turn into those liberal armchair anthropology scenarios where there's no way to actually answer.
Right. So does that then not contradict not giving definitions? Because I think we need definitions to create clear boundaries and in order to
No, I never said that. I said the
communicate.
definitions provided. There's no such thing as definition. That's what I said.
I think if something serves a purpose, then it has value, and it makes sense to define. Otherwise, I mean, language. I mean, okay, maybe I don't know, 5,000 years ago in Atlantis, when people used to use 80 or 90% of their brains, we could have a telepathic communication that was just done purely by fucking colors and vibration, and we didn't need to verbalize things because it's maybe like the lowest form of communication there is, essentially. But in this realm, in this reality that's been bestowed upon us, if it even is real, because you go down simulation theory and that whole wormhole. But within this, it's like you need practical things in order to. I wouldn't even say you need, like, practicality is just what makes everything work. And I think to kind of go against that would be, I don't know, like
But I'm not.
invoking, chaos and disorder to an extent.
No, but it's not going against that. That's where our I guess the debate lies.
I
You
definitely agree
think
that
that.
some things, the definition of some things definitely could be changed, absolutely, and
No,
what
but
constitutes
definition.
things.
But there's 2 points here. Definition, the word itself, is an oxymoron, because definition is the idea that something can be absolutely defined, which it isn't, because every single thesaurus and dictionary has a different wording with respect to how they are defining, which makes definition as a word, a concept, an oxymoron, because nothing is absolute, as we know, and we've given examples to. I'm not saying that's how I want the situation, because then that does go into mad liberalism, and you're absolutely right about it creates chaos, because order through chaos, that's the Freemasonic slogan agenda, and that's what they want, to create absolute anarchy, right? The debate is, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, you think that my definition, or my belief rather, sorry, that there is no such thing as altruism opens the doors for ultimate liberalism, because it's essentially anything goes, nothing is absolute. I disagree, because I believe that can actually be easily adopted and understood if people are just honest with themselves that nothing is altruistic and everything that they do is self-interest. I believe that is something that can be proven. It's just people don't want to prove it. Just like it won't. I believe everything, is self-interested and nothing is altruistic. But I don't see it as this kind of absolutist kind of, fucking artsy-fartsy liberal nonsense. I think it can actually be attained by everybody very simply if they just are willing to be honest with themselves. So I don't see it, and I believe it. So I believe it's achievable.
I think, yeah, I mean, absolutely. People are, I think all of us are honest with ourselves, in certain areas, or most of us, I'd like to think, honest with ourselves. And, everybody has, blind spots, and everybody has areas where they could grow. And, we're not, completely rounded. That generally doesn't exist. I've never met anybody who's completely perfectly rounded. Everybody has their flaws. But in regards to we're talking about everything you're saying, everything's a self-interested act. Well, if you're not making a conscious or subconscious decision, and it's something that's a physiological quirk, then what's self-interested about it? Okay, you could argue that the cell, the cancer cell, or the fucking brain cell that's causing that schizophrenia wants to thrive. Therefore, that cell is self-interested. But there's different degrees of schizophrenia, because people have different levels of brain damage, and there's even a scale on that. There's category A, B, and C. So
then the next level, what's the origin of what we are? Because the cell is a derivative of the program, and is the program, what's the program? Because it would still be self-interested, right? Because the program decides the behavior.
I mean, if we say that even an accident is self-interest, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to argue against my point. I'm going to say, okay, well, let's just say that a virus. So somebody's created a program. I'm Bill Gates, even though he's an absolute shill, and I've created, Microsoft, and I've created Windows, and I want this operating system. My intent, my absolute conscious intent, is for this operating system to, run properly, even though it's actually been designed with bugs in it on purpose. I'm just creating like a theoretical scene here, and through no intent of my own, just through blind spots in my knowledge and my understanding, and just like the evolution of said software programming, software, this then develops a virus, and that affects my bottom line. It maybe drives consumers away from buying the product. It's causing problems for me, myself, when I use the software, and for the end user. How would that be in self-interest? So if we say that everything that happens,
it is still self-interested,
even on a cellular level, it's self-interested.
Yeah. So there are things in that example which affected him without being related to him or of him. So he created the program for whatever personal gain he desired, whether it's money or that which money buys, maybe kids in basements, probably that. He created the program, very successful, and all of a sudden, through other people's self-interest, his product stops getting bought and the business goes defunct, right? But that's of no origin of his own cellular water, or whatever you want to call it, his own program, although that goes into the debate of whether the program is overreaching and is more of a kind of preconceived notion that affects all simultaneously. But the example would just be that other people's self-interest decided that that product would not sell, or that that virus would bring an end to the business. But it's not him, is it? If you punch
Okay,
me in the
but
face, it's not my self-interest to get
yeah,
punched
yeah,
in
oh,
the
no, no, no,
face,
absolutely,
but
no,
you're
absolutely.
punching me in
So,
the face. It's your
okay,
self-interest. But
so let's
everything is
talk
still...
about. So let's just say, you're saying that. Would you say that every living cell is self-interested? And I think that's where I was going to. So
Yeah,
if you
and I
would,
would even say that that sounds similar. Self-interested.
cell is the self. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So everything, you could say that every single cell, but if a cell, you know, is created as a quirk, is that cell self-interested? So I agree that, and I even admit, I said that the vast majority of decisions I make are absolutely fucking like absolutely consciously, self-interested. A lot of them, what I eat, what I wear, all of these things. So what I think, what I watch, a lot of these things are self-interest. Is for some kind of growth, and then things that I would say, uh, you know, altruistic acts would be, I don't know, just doing something that I really don't want to do for somebody else, and I don't even necessarily feel fucking good after I've done it either. So, I
Yeah,
don't
but
see
you
where the
had to do it,
self-interest
otherwise you
is.
wouldn't do it. You felt
I
that you
didn't
had
have
to
to
do
do it.
it.
I
You wouldn't
just
do it
yeah, I
otherwise, would
did.
you?
Yeah, I mean, I did, and you could say that I want to. I'd say that a choice is not necessarily a desire, right? A choice isn't a desire.
No, what it is, because
It's
it's
the
one and the
driving
same,
force
isn't it?
behind that choice
Well,
makes it a desire, right? So
no, no, no. A desire is just something that benefits you at the end of the day, isn't it? You desire for yourself to be in the best possible situation according to how environment has shaped you, your belief system. You act in accordance to whatever belief system you have at set time. So there's no example of something that you would do where the act itself or the end, the conclusion, the product is unrelated to you, because it will always be related to you in some way. So you wouldn't just walk up to a random homeless guy on the street and give him money, would you? It wouldn't be unrelated because you've seen him. He's not random. He's in front of you. So there's an affiliation there. Who knows? Maybe his red jumper sparked something off. You like the jumper. You used to have the jumper. It could be fucking anything. You just had a bit of spare change and you thought, oh, this is going to make me feel good. Or it reminds you there's a reminiscence that it doesn't matter what it is. It could be a billion different things. The reality is the biological self driven by the program would never act without a relation, without a link, without a correlation, a connection. Connection being
right.
the perfect word because we're all electrical and it is all a program, potentially.
So it's actually funny because one could say that there is self-interest probably isn't even a reflection of altruism. And you could say that, altruism is in fact self-interested, but, we're talking about, altruism by definition. So absolutely, I believe it would be better for everybody, which would equal self-interest, if people took what is deemed a more altruistic approach to life. Absolutely. It would suit me and my belief systems. Um, but I talk about belief systems. It's a lot of it is, you know, innate. People want to. I mean, by design, we're social beings,
Oh,
and
I
we
know where
need
this is going.
people, and we accommodate, people.
Yeah.
And we
But we
accommodate.
accommodate people for ourselves, because if we all lived in anarchy, it would be less beneficial for ourselves. So social order is created so that each individual in said social order can better their own existence. Otherwise, it'd have to be killing and quelling and fighting off one another each and every day of the week. So social bonds were created to prevent that for the interest of
Absolutely.
all within that. There we go.
So this is why altruism is needed, and
But it's not, but it's still not real. Like, it's not a real thing. It's an illusion. It's a farce. It's fugazi. It's fake. It's an idea. It's like, I would like to live on a cushion of, I don't know, fucking tiger skin, sleeping up in the clouds, right? It's not real. It can't happen. Altruism is an idea. It's a notion. It's very nice, and it's closer to something that's possible. Like I can have a tiger skin, not on the clouds. That's more achievable. Altruism is even more achievable than that, or the idea of it. But altruism as a term is simply just a kind of utopian ideology that is never going to be applicable. It has never been applicable because it can't be applicable. But it is. It's a utopian vision.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's because, there are people that just, people are different, and you have people that have a very naturally positive disposition, helpful disposition, giving disposition, and, and there's different, there are different degrees to that. And there are many cases where that's not something that's been socialized. So how would you deem something fugazi if it's innate in that individual?
No, because that's the exact same thing we've been debating the entire time. You're arguing that altruism is an absolute truth and it is innate in that individual.
Well, I'm saying
and I'm saying that
it absolutely exists. Yeah, I'm
no,
saying
I don't think it does. And your
Absolutely.
example of them not being socialized or interacting with others is kind of irrelevant, really. It's in their interest to do that. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. I mean, it all boils down to the actual act itself, the biological act, the decision-making process. There would be no reason for someone to do something unless it brings them something. And like the example of the homeless person, there's no example of anything where you are unrelated from the final act.
You always relate.
I mean?
It doesn't necessarily always bring you something. So,
but it does. Otherwise, it wouldn't be undertaken. The machine wouldn't produce.
Once you're dead, there's nothing to be got, and that's why I use that.
Yeah, but you're dead. You're dead. Yeah, but
exactly. You're dead. Exactly. Can you imagine? Like, no, you can't because you'd be dead.
Well, but that's another debate. Who's to say that actually is true? What is death? That's a whole another debate, isn't it? What is death? What is dead? The skin decomposes. The body as we see it, the physical, is supposedly ending, but who's to say that's true either?
Oh, I mean,
that dissolution into the soil just creates another product.
I mean, I believe in, realms outside of this one. So, there's definitely like a metaphysical aspect. There's definitely things that we cannot see. And we literally live inside an enclosed system with things outside of it, right? So, I mean, who knows? So there's definitely like a lot that we're not aware of. I mean, we literally live around frequencies. Like, we're talking on a phone that is not connected thousands of miles from each other yet. And like, this is like within the realms of things that we can access and use. I can become like a telecoms engineer and learn how to create these products and tap into these frequencies and do these things. Yeah,
and we're using a simulation card in the phone as well, a SIM card simulation.
Exactly. Simulation card. It's like the absolutely the possibilities are endless. But in regards to death, there's actually I remember hearing something about people, like kind of like the essence. There's like an essence and a weight that's lost that people call like, quote unquote, the weight of the soul at the point of somebody's expiration. So yeah, that's absolutely a fascinating topic. I think we should do a pod on near-death experiences because
yes, that would be nice.
Yeah, because people, talking about that is interesting, and then that absolutely lends to your question, what is death? Because essentially, Yeah, I think there definitely is more than meets the eye. Absolutely.
And of course, the altruism self-interest debate will never be
Ever end.
thwarted and will continue on indefinitely.
Definitely. Please leave comments, because I'm sure this will divide our 10 to 12 listeners, at least I would hope by now. And yeah, if you can, create a couple of tribes, yeah, in the comments section, because it's always nice to have reference point and be able to bounce things off each other. And, maybe John will see the light and realize that altruism's a real thing.
Or maybe James will, although I doubt it. I am, of course, right, as the audience knows, and I expect 100%, which is maybe 12 listeners is quite optimistic. Maybe 2 or 3 will upvote me. But again, feel free to comment and share and all that good kind of stuff. And I'm looking forward to debate next week, James, which is it's a good topic.
Yeah,
Life
absolutely.
after death, potentially.
Yeah.
All the
Yeah,
best.
I don't think that'll be a debate. I think that'll just be like a chat. I think we probably each have, I don't know, maybe we have similar views on that. We'll see. It'll probably turn into a debate at some point. We'll debate
100%. It would come
something
back round to altruism and self-interest. Anyway, though, I'll speak to you later, man. All the best and
Adios.
au revoir.
Bye. Ciao.